Picture this. You're 5 years old. Your mind is a universe of endless possibilities. Every rock could be a dinosaur egg. Every puddle holds mysteries of underwater worlds. You build castles from couch cushions and become a knight, a princess, a dragon, sometimes all three in the same afternoon. Your questions flow like a river. Why is the sky blue? How do birds know where to fly? What if dinosaurs could talk? You are pure potential, a natural-born explorer, scientist and philosopher wrapped into one incredible little human being. Then something happens, something so gradual, so accepted, so deeply embedded in our society that nobody questions it anymore. You enter the system, and slowly, piece by piece, that curious, creative, questioning child begins to disappear. The silent theft of human potential. Here's the truth they never told you in those sanitized history books. The modern education system wasn't created by accident. It wasn't some natural evolution of human learning. No, it was carefully engineered by powerful men who had a very specific agenda. The man at the center of this story? John D. Rockefeller. Yes, the same oil tycoon who built one of the most powerful monopolies in American history. But his influence didn't stop at oil wells and refineries. He had bigger plans, plans that would shape the minds of millions of children for generations to come. In 1902, Rockefeller established the General Education Board with a massive endowment, which would be billions in today's money. But here's the kicker. He wasn't trying to make education better. He was trying to make it more useful. Useful for creating the kind of people his industrial empire needed. And what kind of people did he need? Obedient workers who would never question the system that made him rich. The factory model, where dreams go to die. Let me paint you a picture of how learning actually worked before the industrial age. Children learned by doing. They worked alongside adults, mastering real skills through hands-on experience. A blacksmith's son learned metalwork by watching, helping, making mistakes, and trying again. A farmer's daughter understood the seasons, weather patterns, and plant biology because her family's survival depended on it. Learning was natural, organic, connected to real life and real purposes. Then the Industrial Revolution changed everything. Suddenly, America needed massive numbers of workers for its factories, but not just any workers. They needed people who could show up on time, follow orders without question, perform repetitive tasks without getting bored, and never challenge authority. The problem? People who learned naturally, through exploration, creativity, and independent thinking, made terrible factory workers. They asked too many questions. They wanted to understand why things worked the way they did. They got bored with repetitive tasks. They had this annoying habit of thinking for themselves. So the industrial leaders looked to Prussia for inspiration. The Prussian education system had been designed for one purpose: creating obedient soldiers. It was brilliant in its simplicity. Take children away from their families, group them by age, not ability, subject them to rigid schedules controlled by bells, teach them to sit still, be quiet, and follow orders without question. American industrialists realized they could adapt this military model to create obedient workers instead of obedient soldiers. The transformation was swift and devastating. Within a few decades, the one-room schoolhouses, where children of different ages learned together, were replaced by factory-like institutions. Children were sorted like products on an assembly line, first grade, second grade, third grade, regardless of their individual development, interests, or abilities. The curriculum was chopped up into artificial fragments. Math had nothing to do with science. Science had nothing to do with history. History had nothing to do with literature. This wasn't an accident. It was designed to prevent children from seeing the big picture, from making connections, from understanding how the world really worked. The Rockefeller connection: money, power, and control. Now here's where the story gets really dark. John D. Rockefeller didn't just support this transformation. He orchestrated it. Through the General Education Board, he poured enormous sums of money into reshaping American education. But his motives weren't altruistic. The General Education Board's own documents reveal their true intentions. In 1906, they published a statement that should chill every parent to the bone. In our dream, we have limitless resources, and the people yield themselves with perfect docility to our molding hands. Read that again. Perfect docility. They literally wanted to create docile human beings. Frederick T. Gates, Rockefeller's right-hand man and the first president of the General Education Board was even more explicit. He wrote, "We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or of science. We are not to raise up from among them authors, orators, poets, or men of letters. We shall not search for embryo great artists, painters, musicians, nor will we cherish even the humbler ambition to raise up from among them lawyers, doctors, preachers, statesmen, of whom we now have ample supply." Think about what he's saying here. They deliberately wanted to prevent children from becoming thinkers, creators, leaders, or innovators. Gates continued, "The task we set before ourselves is very simple, as well as a very beautiful one, to train these people as we find them to a perfectly ideal life just where they are." Translation: we want to keep people exactly where we found them. No social mobility, no dreams of something better, no questioning of the established order. But the most revealing quote came from Rockefeller himself. When asked about his educational philosophy, he reportedly said, "I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers." This wasn't about education. This was about social control on a massive scale. The psychological destruction, how school breaks the human spirit. Let me tell you about a pattern that happens millions of times across the world. This is the story of countless children, and it's heartbreakingly real. At age 4, a child could spend hours drawing elaborate pictures of the worlds they imagined. Their drawings weren't good by adult standards. They were something far more valuable. They were pure expression, unfiltered creativity, the external manifestation of a mind that saw infinite possibilities. This child also loved to ask questions. Why do leaves change color? Where do thoughts come from? What would happen if gravity worked backwards? Their parents sometimes got exhausted by the constant stream of curiosity, but they recognized something beautiful in their child's relentless quest to understand the world. Then the child started school. On their first day, they were told to sit in a small plastic chair arranged in a perfect row with 25 other small plastic chairs. When they tried to get up to look more closely at the interesting poster on the wall, they were told to sit down. When they started drawing during the teacher's lesson about the letter A, their crayon was taken away. When they asked why they had to learn about letters when they already knew how to read, they were told that questions would come later, during the designated question time. By the end of their first week, this child had learned the most important lesson school had to teach. Their natural curiosity was a problem to be controlled. Over the following months and years, this child learned to suppress their questions. They learned that there was a right way to draw, realistic, inside the lines, using the correct colors. They learned that their imagination was less valuable than their ability to memorize facts for tests they would forget immediately afterward. By 3rd grade, they had stopped drawing at home. By 5th grade, they rarely asked questions. By high school, when a teacher asked the class what they wanted to be when they grew up, they honestly didn't know. The child who once saw infinite possibilities in everything now couldn't imagine any possibilities for themselves. This story is the story of millions of children. The natural human drive to learn, create, and explore systematically crushed by an institution that calls itself educational. The Creativity Massacre, documented destruction. This isn't just anecdotal evidence. The research is devastating. Dr. George Land, a NASA scientist, developed a creativity test to help select the most innovative engineers and scientists. The test measured divergent thinking, the ability to look at a problem and come up with new and innovative ideas. When he gave this test to 1,600 5-year-olds, the results were astounding. 98% scored at the creative genius level. Curious about how creativity developed over time, Dr. Land tested the same children 5 years later when they were 10 years old. This time, only 30% scored at the creative genius level. 5 years after that, when the same children were 15, only 12% scored at the creative genius level. But here's the most shocking part. When Dr. Land gave the same test to 280,000 adults, only 2% scored at the creative genius level. The conclusion was inescapable. We aren't born uncreative. We are systematically trained to be uncreative by our education system. Dr. Land explained what was happening. What we have concluded is that non-creative behavior is learned. We have found that creativity is present in almost all children, but destroyed by our education system. The confidence crusher. Manufacturing self-doubt. School doesn't just kill creativity, it systematically destroys confidence and self-trust. Here's how it works. From the moment children enter school, they're taught that there's only one right answer to every question. Math problems have one correct solution. History has one accepted interpretation. Even creative writing assignments come with rubrics that dictate exactly what constitutes a good story. This creates a devastating psychological pattern. Children learn that being wrong is shameful. They become afraid to take risks, to experiment, to try new approaches. They learn to wait for authority figures to tell them what to think rather than trusting their own judgment. The message is clear and consistent. You cannot trust yourself to know what's right. This manufactured self-doubt serves the system perfectly. Adults who don't trust their own judgment are much easier to control. They look to authorities, bosses, politicians, experts, celebrities, to tell them what to believe, what to buy, how to live. They become perfect consumers and compliant employees. The passion killer. Destroying natural learning. Human beings are natural learners. Watch any baby or toddler, and you'll see the most sophisticated learning machine ever created. They learn language without formal instruction. They master complex motor skills through trial and error. They explore their environment with insatiable curiosity. This natural learning drive is so powerful that throughout most of human history, formal schooling wasn't necessary for most people to acquire the skills they needed to thrive. But school systematically undermines this natural learning drive. It separates learning from real-world application. It makes children study subjects they have no interest in, using methods that don't match how they naturally learn, to prepare for tests that measure nothing meaningful about their intelligence or potential. Worse, it teaches children that learning is something that happens to them, not something they do for themselves. They learn to wait for teachers to give them information, rather than seeking it out on their own. They learn to study for external rewards, grades, approval, avoiding punishment, rather than for the intrinsic joy of understanding. By the time they graduate, most students have completely lost touch with their natural love of learning. The adult consequences, a generation of broken dreams. The damage doesn't stop when students graduate, it follows them into adulthood, shaping every aspect of their lives. Consider these sobering statistics. 85% of workers report being disengaged from their jobs. Anxiety and depression rates have skyrocketed, especially among young adults. Suicide rates are at historic highs. Most adults report feeling disconnected from their purpose in life. Creative thinking abilities continue to decline throughout adulthood. This isn't coincidence. This is the predictable result of putting human beings through a system designed to break their spirits. Consider this all-too-common story. A 35-year-old works in middle management at a corporation they don't particularly like, doing work that doesn't particularly matter to them. They make decent money, have a nice house in the suburbs, and by all external measures should be successful. But they feel empty. They can't remember the last time they felt truly excited about anything. They have vague memories of wanting to be a writer when they were young, but that dream feels impossibly distant now. They've been trained to be realistic, to value security over passion, to define success by salary and social status rather than fulfillment and contribution. This person is the perfect product of the industrial education system. Obedient, compliant, willing to trade their dreams for the promise of security. They don't cause trouble. They don't ask difficult questions. They don't rock the boat. They also don't live. Not really. The hidden curriculum. What school really teaches. Forget about math, science, and reading for a moment. Those aren't the real lessons school teaches. The real curriculum is hidden, insidious, and far more powerful than any textbook. Lesson 1. Obedience is more important than understanding. Every day, from kindergarten through 12th grade, children receive hundreds of commands. Sit down, stand up, line up, raise your hand, ask permission to speak, ask permission to use the bathroom, don't talk, don't move, don't question. They learn that following orders is more important than understanding why the orders exist. They learn to comply first and think second, if at all. This creates adults who are uncomfortable with independent thought and action. Lesson 2. Your worth is determined by others. In school, your value is constantly measured and quantified by external authorities. Grades determine whether you're smart or stupid. Test scores determine whether you're college material or trade school bound. Teacher approval determines whether you're a good student or a problem child. Children learn that their worth is not inherent. It must be earned through performance and approved by authority figures. This creates adults who are desperate for external validation and approval. Lesson 3. Competition is natural and necessary. School pits children against each other in artificial competition. Class rank, grade curves, limited spots in advanced programs. The message is clear. Success is scarce, and you must defeat others to get your share. But this is a lie. Real wealth, real success, real fulfillment comes from collaboration, from creating value, from helping others succeed. The scarcity mindset taught in school creates a world of fear, isolation, and artificial limitations. Lesson 4. Conformity is safety. From dress codes to behavior codes to academic standards, school teaches children that being different is dangerous. The nail that sticks out gets hammered down. Uniqueness is seen as a problem to be solved, not a gift to be celebrated. This creates adults who are afraid to be themselves, who hide their authentic interests and abilities to fit in. The generational trauma. How damage spreads. Here's the most tragic part of this story. The damage doesn't stop with the individuals who went through this system. It spreads like a virus through families, communities, and entire cultures. Adults who are broken by school become parents who, despite their best intentions, pass that brokenness on to their children. They've been so thoroughly conditioned to believe that school is necessary and beneficial that they can't imagine alternatives. They become teachers who perpetuate the system because it's the only way they know how to educate. They become administrators who defend the system because questioning it would mean admitting they've spent their careers damaging children. They become politicians who fund the system, employers who hire its graduates, and citizens who vote to maintain it. The cycle continues, generation after generation, because it's easier to believe the system works than to admit you were damaged by it. The real purpose: creating consumers and workers. Let's be brutally honest about what the modern education system actually accomplishes. It creates two types of people that the industrial economy desperately needs. Consumers, people who define themselves by what they buy rather than what they create. People who look to external sources for entertainment, meaning, and identity. People who are easily influenced by advertising and marketing. People who will spend their entire lives working jobs they don't like to buy things they don't need to impress people they don't care about. Workers, people who are comfortable with routine, repetitive tasks. People who don't ask uncomfortable questions about why things are done the way they're done. People who will show up on time, follow instructions, and accept whatever wage they're offered without complaint. People who will never challenge the fundamental structure of the economy that keeps them trapped in jobs that serve others' purposes rather than their own. The system works exactly as designed. It just doesn't work for the people trapped inside it. The alternative vision: what learning could actually be. Before I tell you how to escape this system, let me paint a picture of what education could look like if it were actually designed to serve human flourishing instead of industrial needs. Imagine children learning at their own pace, following their natural curiosity wherever it leads. Imagine them working on real problems that matter to them, collaborating with people of all ages, making genuine contributions to their communities while they learn. Imagine a system where mistakes are celebrated as learning opportunities, where creativity is nurtured rather than crushed, where every child's unique gifts are recognized and developed. This isn't fantasy. This is how humans naturally learn. Throughout most of human history, children learned by participating in real life. They learned practical skills by working alongside adults. They learned social skills by interacting with people of all ages. They learned problem solving by facing actual challenges that mattered. They learned because learning was natural, enjoyable, and directly connected to their lives and futures. The Great Awakening: breaking free from mental slavery. Here's the beautiful truth that will set you free. You can heal from this damage. The conditioning can be undone. The real you, the curious, creative, passionate person you were before school got its hands on you, is still in there, waiting to be rediscovered. But it requires something our education never taught us: the courage to think for ourselves. The first step is recognizing that everything you were taught about learning, success, and your own capabilities might be wrong. The second step is beginning to question those beliefs. The third step is starting to experiment with new ways of being. Reconnecting with your natural curiosity. Start paying attention to what genuinely interests you, not what you think should interest you based on what you've been taught. What questions make you excited? What problems do you find yourself thinking about? What activities make you lose track of time? These are clues to your authentic self. The person you were before school taught you to ignore your own interests in favor of external requirements. Embracing your creative nature. You are creative. Every human being is creative. It's not a special talent reserved for artists. It's a fundamental aspect of human consciousness. Creativity is problem solving. It's seeing new possibilities. It's combining existing ideas in novel ways. Start creating something, anything. Write a story, even if you haven't written since high school. Draw a picture, even if you can't draw realistically. Build something, plant something, cook something, fix something. The goal isn't to create something good by external standards. The goal is to reconnect with the joy of creation. Learning to trust your own judgment. This might be the hardest part, because school specifically trained you not to trust yourself. Start small. Make decisions based on you. Our own judgment rather than what others expect. Choose foods you actually enjoy rather than what you think you should eat. Wear clothes that feel authentic to you rather than what fashion magazines suggest. As you practice trusting yourself in small things, you'll gradually develop the confidence to trust yourself in bigger things. The future belongs to the authentic. We're living through the greatest economic transformation in human history. Artificial intelligence is automating routine cognitive work. Globalization is commoditizing standardized skills. The jobs that sustained the middle class for decades are disappearing. But this isn't bad news. It's liberating news. The future economy will reward exactly the qualities that traditional education destroys: creativity, independent thinking, emotional intelligence, adaptability, entrepreneurship, and authentic self-expression. The people who thrive in the coming decades won't be those who are best at following instructions and regurgitating information. They'll be the people who can think for themselves, solve novel problems, create genuine value, and connect authentically with others. In other words, the future belongs to people who can unlearn what school taught them and reconnect with their natural human capabilities. Your revolution starts now. Every day you face a choice. You can continue living according to the programming school installed in your brain, or you can begin the process of reclaiming your authentic self. Most people will choose to stay trapped. It's easier. It's comfortable. It's what everyone expects. Breaking free requires courage, effort, and the willingness to be different in a world that rewards conformity. But you're reading this, which means you're already different. You're questioning, you're seeking, you're ready to remember who you really are beneath all the layers of conditioning and false beliefs about your own capabilities. Start today. Start now. Begin the process of unlearning the lies and reconnecting with the truth of your own potential. The 5-year-old you is still in there, waiting to be free.